"This ring belongs to Riley, not you." I heard those words while standing on the stage at my own engagement party. My fiancé Remy holding the microphone like he was about to announce a promotion instead of destroying my life. Everyone fell silent. Then the whispers started, a wave of shock rippling through the crowd of 200 guests. I looked at Remy, this man I'd spent 3 years building a future with, and he stared back at me like I was a stranger he'd just met at a bus stop. "Don't take it personally, Elian," he said with the casual tone someone uses when canceling lunch plans. "But Riley gets me in ways you never could. What we had was comfortable, sure, but it wasn't real love." Riley, my supposed best friend who knew every secret I'd ever shared, stepped forward and took Remy's hand without even glancing my way. The stage lights burned against my skin, every eye in the room fixed on me, watching my humiliation play out in real time like some twisted reality show. My legs trembled as I descended from the stage, trying desperately to maintain some shred of dignity while my world collapsed around me. As I pushed through the crowd toward the exit, fragments of conversations stabbed at me from every direction. Always thought there was something off about those two. God, how mortifying for him. Honestly, Riley's an upgrade. Did you see that dress? Each comment felt like a physical blow, hitting me square in the chest and stealing my breath. When I finally burst through the venue doors, rain was already falling in heavy sheets, but I barely registered the cold water soaking through my expensive suits. I just needed to move, to get away, to escape this nightmare that had somehow replaced what should have been one of the happiest nights of my life. "Elian." The voice cut through the sound of rain hitting pavement, deep, authoritative, impossible to ignore. I stopped and turned. Davin Cross stood there, tall and imposing in a suit that probably cost more than my car, getting drenched but not seeming to care in the slightest. One hand rested in his pocket while the other gestured toward a sleek black vehicle parked at the curb. "Get in the car before you make yourself sick out here." His tone left no room for argument, but I found myself arguing anyway. "Why would you possibly care what happens to me?" I shot back, bitterness dripping from every word. The rivalry between Davin and Remy was legendary in business circles. These two men despised each other with an intensity that had become the stuff of office gossip and trade publication speculation. "Maybe I don't care," Davin replied with unsettling calmness, rainwater running down his face. "Or maybe I recognize an opportunity when I see one, and you could benefit from it too if you'd stop drowning in self-pity long enough to listen." I studied his dark eyes, trying to read whatever calculation was happening behind them. This man had a reputation that preceded him. Ruthless in negotiations, cold in business dealings, someone who treated people like chess pieces to be strategically positioned. But standing there soaked to the bone, publicly humiliated beyond anything I'd thought possible, I found myself without better options. I climbed into his car, water dripping onto the expensive leather seats. "I'm taking you to my place," Davin said as the engine purred to life. "We'll have a proper conversation there about how you can get your revenge and I can get what I need from this situation." Devin's penthouse was as intimidating as the man himself. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the glittering city below. Abstract art that probably cost a fortune. Everything arranged with precise, deliberate perfection. He handed me a towel and a set of dry clothes without ceremony. "Clean yourself up first. We'll talk after." When I emerged from the guest bathroom wearing his clothes, which fit surprisingly well, I found him pouring amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. "Whiskey?" he offered. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The first sip burned going down, but the second was easier, warmth spreading through my chest. "So what's this offer you mentioned?" I asked, deciding to cut through whatever game he was playing. Devin's smile was calculated, almost predatory. "Marry me." "Obviously not for love. I don't do love and you're in no state for it anyway. A contract marriage lasting 1 year. We both get exactly what we want. You get revenge on Remy. I get certain business advantages that having a husband would provide." My first thought was that he'd lost his mind. My second thought was remembering Remy's smug expression on that stage. Riley's betrayal, the laughter I'd heard from people I'd considered friends. What would be the specific terms of this arrangement? I asked slowly, surprised to find myself actually considering this insane proposal. "Straightforward enough," Devin explained. leaning back in his chair like we were discussing a simple business transaction instead of marriage. Publicly, we're the perfect couple, social events, business dinners, photographs for the press, everything that creates the right image. Privately, we maintain separate lives, separate bedrooms, separate personal business unless it affects our public arrangement. After 1 year, we divorce cleanly with no complications. But I need you to understand something, Elian. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. I'm not a good person, I'm selfish, I'm manipulative, and I use people to get what I want. The only difference between me and Remy is that I'm honest about it up front. He raised his glass in a mock toast. So, do we have a deal? I stared at my own reflection in the glass, watching it distort and shift. Could I actually do this? Marry someone I barely knew out of spite? But then again, I'd thought I knew Remy, and look how that turned out. 3 years of my life invested in someone who disposed of me like yesterday's trash. The moment someone more interesting came along. I have one condition, I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt. Remy has to be the first one to find out about our marriage. I want him to know before anyone else. Devon's smile transformed into something almost wicked. And for the first time that horrible night, I felt a small spark of something other than pain. Consider it done. I'll make absolutely certain he's the first to receive the news, along with appropriate photographic evidence. The next morning found me in a lawyer's office, pen in hand, reading through the most unusual contract I'd ever seen. Every clause was clearly defined, financial arrangements that were surprisingly generous, a detailed schedule of expected public appearances, specific termination clauses that protected both parties. This was purely business, nothing more. Yet when I signed my name at the bottom, something shifted in my chest. I was now legally bound to Devon Cross, for better or worse. Ready for the next step? He asked, and I nodded because there was no going back now. City Hall was surprisingly anticlimactic. Just a judge, 2 witnesses we'd pulled from the courthouse staff, and a ceremony that lasted less than 15 minutes. When the judge said, "You may now kiss," Devon looked at me silently asking permission. I nodded again. The kiss was brief, almost businesslike, but his lips were on mine when the camera flash went off. Devon's photographer, strategically positioned to capture the moment. These photos would be everywhere within hours. "Welcome to the game," Devon whispered against my ear as we pulled apart. "Now let's see how Remy handles this." Moving into Devon's penthouse felt like stepping into an alternate reality where nothing made sense anymore. "Your room is upstairs, second door on the right," he said, pointing toward a floating staircase that probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. "You'll find everything you need, private bathroom, closet space, whatever. Let me know if something's missing." I climbed the stairs and opened the door to find a space that was sleek and modern but completely impersonal, like a high-end hotel room designed by someone who'd never actually lived in a home. I set my suitcase on the bed and felt the weight of everything crash over me at once. 24 hours ago, my future had been mapped out. Marriage to Remy, our shared apartment downtown, maybe kids in a few years. Now, I was living with a man whose last name I'd taken but whose favorite color I couldn't even guess. Elian. Devon's voice from the doorway made me jump. "I'm ordering food for delivery. Any preferences, or should I just choose?" "Whatever you want is fine," I replied automatically, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. He studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable, then nodded. "Come downstairs in half an hour." Dinner was awkward in the way that only forced proximity between strangers can be. Devon scrolled through his phone while we ate, occasionally smirking at whatever he was reading. "What's so amusing?" I finally asked, if only to break the suffocating silence. "Remy posted a statement on social media," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. "Apparently our marriage is surprising news, and he wishes us all the happiness." Translation: he's completely panicking and has no idea how to handle this. He turned the phone so I could see. Remy's post was carefully worded and professional, but the comments section was absolutely brutal. First he dumps Elian publicly, now Elian marries his biggest enemy. Poetry. This is messier than a soap opera, and I'm here for all of it. Devon Cross though, that's definitely a major upgrade. I handed the phone back, expecting to feel satisfaction but finding only emptiness instead. Does knowing he's upset make you feel better? Devon asked, watching me carefully. Honestly, I don't know what I'm feeling right now. The words came out flat, devoid of emotion. Because that was exactly how I felt, numb, disconnected, like I was watching my own life happen to someone else. The next night I couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts racing through my mind. Too many questions I didn't have answers for. I went downstairs for water and found Devon at the kitchen island with his laptop, working despite the late hour. Insomnia? He asked, without looking up from the screen. Something like that, I admitted. Do you deal with it too? He finally glanced at me and gave a slight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Occupational hazard of my line of work. Sit down if you want to talk. I'm not getting anything else done tonight anyway. I hesitated, then took the seat across from him. Can I ask you something? When he nodded, I continued. Why do you hate Remy so much? I mean beyond just business competition. There's real animosity there, and I want to understand where it comes from. Devon's expression hardened, his jaw tightening in a way that made him look dangerous. 5 years ago, I had a younger brother named Alex. He was idealistic, trusting, believed the best in people. All the things that make someone vulnerable in the business world. Remy approached him with a partnership opportunity, a joint venture that looked perfect on paper. They signed contracts, launched the business. Everything seemed legitimate. He paused, his hands clenching into fists on the counter. Then Remy systematically transferred everything into his own name. Patents, client lists, even the credit for Alex's original ideas. When my brother confronted him, Remy had lawyers and documentation that made it all appear legal. Alex fell into a severe depression and attempted suicide. The air left my lungs in a rush. Devon, that's absolutely horrific. He survived. Devon cut me off, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. Barely. Now he lives across the country, sees a therapist 3 times a week, and refuses to speak to me because he thinks I should have protected him, should have seen it coming. So yes, I hate Remy with everything in me. When you gave me this opportunity for revenge, I couldn't pass it up. I saw the raw pain in his eyes, the kind that comes from watching someone you love nearly destroy themselves. I had no idea Remy was capable of that level of cruelty. I said quietly, if I'd known what kind of person he really was, you would have what left him soon. Devon leaned back, his expression cynical. People hide their darkness until they feel secure enough to show it. Elian, Remy felt secure with you, comfortable enough that he could discard you publicly without consequences. At least in his mind. The realization stung. But I couldn't deny the truth in his words. At least you're being honest with me about your motivations. I said. That's more than I got from him. Honesty serves my purposes. Devon replied bluntly. I'm telling you the truth because it benefits our arrangement, not out of some noble sense of morality. But I can promise you this, I won't lie to you, Elian. That much you can count on. His brutal honesty was almost refreshing after 3 years of Remy's sweet deceptions. We have our first public appearance tomorrow, Devon continued, changing the subject. Business brunch at the Rothschilds. Remy will be there with Riley. Are you prepared for that? My stomach dropped. Already. We just got married yesterday. Exactly. No point in waiting. The longer we put it off, the harder it becomes. Besides, striking while emotions are still raw will maximize impact. He stood up, stretching. I'll have appropriate clothing sent to your room. Trust me on this, presentation is everything in these circles. The next morning, a personal stylist arrived with racks of clothing and a makeup kit that looked more extensive than anything I'd ever owned. Mr. Cross provided very specific instructions, she said cheerfully, already pulling out options. 2 hours later, I barely recognized the person in the mirror. The charcoal suit fit perfectly, tailored to emphasize my build. My hair was styled in a way that looked effortless, but probably required specific products and techniques I'd never master on my own. Absolutely perfect, Devon said when I came downstairs. His eyes traveled over me with clear appreciation, the first time I'd seen genuine reaction from him that wasn't calculated. Remy is going to deeply regret every decision he made. The brunch venue was exclusive in the way that only old money establishments can be. Rooftop terrace, panoramic city views, tables full of people who wielded serious power. When we entered, Conversations actually paused mid-sentence. I spotted Remy immediately in the corner with Riley, and the look on his face when he saw me was worth every moment of uncertainty. Shock, disbelief, and unmistakable jealousy all flashed across his features in rapid succession. "Showtime," Devon whispered, his hand settling possessively on my lower back as we walked into the lion's den. Remy cornered me near the bar while Devon was temporarily occupied with business associates across the terrace. "Ilian, what are you thinking? Devon Cross?" His voice carried a desperation I'd never heard before, not even when his biggest deal had fallen through last year. "Is there a problem, Remy?" I asked calmly, though my heart was hammering so hard I was certain everyone could hear it. "He's manipulating you. This is obviously revenge against me. Can't you see that you're just a pawn in whatever game he's playing?" Remy reached for my arm, but I stepped back smoothly, maintaining distance. "And what exactly were you doing with me for 3 years? Actually loving me? Or was I just conveniently there until someone more exciting came along?" His face flushed red. "That's completely different." "Different how?" "Because you're trying to rewrite history now." My voice rose slightly, and a few nearby guests turned to watch our confrontation. "You destroyed me in front of everyone I know, Remy. And now that I'm moving forward, suddenly you care?" "I made mistakes. I'll admit that freely. But you don't need to create this entire theatrical production just to hurt me back." I actually laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "You genuinely believe this is all about you? That's remarkably self-centered even for you." Devon appeared at my side with champagne glasses, his timing impeccable as always. "Is something wrong here?" he asked Remy, though his tone made it abundantly clear this was a threat disguised as a question. "Nothing at all," I answered before Remy could respond. "We were just reminiscing about old times. Weren't we, Remy?" Remy's jaw clenched tight, but he managed a stiff nod before walking away, his shoulders tense with barely controlled anger. "You handled that remarkably well," Devon murmured, offering me one of the champagne flutes. "Better than I expected for a first confrontation." "I'm learning from an expert manipulator," I said with a slight smile, accepting the drink. Devon's mouth quirked upward. "Be careful, Ilian. I might interpret that as a compliment." When we returned to the penthouse that evening, I was emotionally drained in a way I'd never experienced before. "I'm going to change into something more comfortable," I announced, heading toward the stairs. But I noticed Devon following me, his footsteps quiet on the hardwood floor. "What?" I asked, turning to face him at my bedroom door. "I wanted to check on you. Today was intense, and I know confronting your ex-fiancé couldn't have been easy." The concern in his voice surprised me. It didn't fit with the cold, calculating persona he presented to the world. "I'm managing, Devon. It's not like I didn't know this was coming." "Still," he said, leaning against the doorframe in a way that was almost casual, "first confrontations are never simple. No matter how prepared you think you are." I saw something in his eyes that didn't match his usual carefully controlled expression. Understanding, maybe. Empathy? "Why are you being kind to me right now?" I asked directly, too tired for games or subtlety. Devon was quiet for a long moment, as if he was genuinely considering the question himself. "Maybe because you're different from what I expected," he finally said. "Different how?" "Most people who get involved with me are either terrified or want something. You're just yourself. Genuine. It's refreshing in a world where everyone wears masks." He pushed away from the doorframe. "Get some rest, Ilian. Tomorrow's schedule is lighter, but we still have dinner commitments." I nodded, and he started to leave, but something made me call out, "Devon." He turned back. "Thanks. For today, for standing beside me even though this is just a business arrangement." For just a moment, his carefully constructed walls seemed to crack, revealing something vulnerable underneath. "Don't thank me yet, I'm still fundamentally selfish. Don't forget that." But as he walked away, I found myself wondering if his selfishness ran as deep as he claimed, or if it was just another layer of protection. The next several days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings, Devon left early for his office downtown, while I explored the city or caught up on reading I'd been putting off for years. Evenings, we either attended social events where we played our roles perfectly, or we had quiet dinners at the penthouse where conversation came surprisingly easily. I was actually becoming comfortable with this strange arrangement when everything shifted one night. I heard raised voices coming from Devin's study, specifically his voice raised, which I'd never witnessed before. I knocked on the door cautiously. Devin? Silence fell immediately, then the door opened. His face was flushed with anger and I could see Alex displayed on his phone screen before he closed it. Is everything okay? I asked carefully, not wanting to overstep boundaries I wasn't sure existed. Family drama, he said dismissively, already putting his emotional walls back up. Nothing that concerns you. But I could see genuine pain in his eyes, the kind that comes from wounds that never properly heal. Do you want to talk about what happened? I offered quietly. Why would I do that? He shot back, his tone defensive. Because keeping everything locked inside isn't healthy. And sometimes talking helps, even if it's just to someone who's technically a stranger. I kept my voice gentle, non-judgmental. Devin stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then unexpectedly he sighed deeply and gestured for me to come inside. Alex called. First time in 2 years. He saw news coverage of our wedding online. He thinks I'm using you the same way Remy used him. Called me a hypocrite who hasn't learned anything. His voice cracked slightly on the last word, betraying more emotion than I'd thought him capable of showing. Without thinking about it, I reached out and took his hand. You're not using me the same way, Devin. We both entered this arrangement with full knowledge and consent. That's fundamentally different. Is it? He asked bitterly. I married you specifically to hurt Remy. That's textbook manipulation but you've been completely transparent about your intentions from the beginning. I insisted. And honestly, I'm using you for the same reason. Revenge against someone who hurt me. We're equal partners in this, not manipulator and victim. Something in Devin's expression softened. You're too kind, Elan. That quality is going to get you hurt eventually. Maybe it will, I admitted. But I'd rather be kind and vulnerable than cold and isolated from genuine human connection. We stood there in his study, hands still connected, and I realized something had fundamentally shifted between us. This wasn't just a business arrangement anymore. We were becoming something else, something neither of us had planned for or knew how to navigate. The contract marriage we'd entered so casually was developing real emotional dimensions, and I had no idea where that would lead us. But standing there with Devin's hand in mine, his walls temporarily lowered, I found myself not particularly worried about the destination. For the first time since Remy's betrayal, I was genuinely curious about what might come next. A week after the brunch incident, Devin suggested we try his private gym. You seem tense, he observed over breakfast. Physical activity helps clear the mind. Plus, it's a useful distraction from overthinking. I'd never been serious about working out, but the idea of doing anything other than replaying conversations with Remy sounded appealing. The gym occupied an entire floor of his building, all gleaming equipment and floor-to-ceiling mirrors. We'll start simple, Devin said, demonstrating proper form for basic exercises. Your posture needs adjustment here, he added, his hands settling on my waist to guide my position. Keep your core engaged. His touch sent electricity through my entire body, making concentration nearly impossible. He stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woody and expensive that seemed to wrap around me. The heat from his body radiated against my back, and I found myself hyper-aware of every point where we made contact. Elian, you need to focus, he whispered near my ear, his breath warm against my skin. Shivers cascaded down my spine despite the warmth of the gym. I turned my head slightly and caught his expression in the mirror. His eyes had darkened, his breathing had become irregular, and I realized with startling clarity that he was just as affected as I was. Devin. I started to say something, anything to acknowledge what was happening between us, but my phone shattered the moment with its insistent ringing. Remy's name flashed on the screen. Again. Just ignore it, Devin said, his voice rough, but I was already reaching for the phone. I should probably see what he wants, I said, immediately regretting the words when I saw Devin's expression close off. Fine, he said, stepping back and creating physical distance that felt like a chasm. I'll give you privacy. He left the gym and I answered the call with more irritation than I'd intended. What do you want, Remy? Elian, please. Can we just meet? Coffee somewhere neutral? I just want to talk face to face. I was about to refuse outright when he added, Riley and I are finished. Completely done. That caught me off guard. What? We broke up, Remy said, and I could hear something desperate in his voice. The whole thing was a massive mistake from start to finish. Everything I did, leaving you, choosing her, it was all wrong. I want you back, Elian. Please, just give me a chance to explain. My first instinct should have been triumph, satisfaction at hearing him beg. Instead, I felt absolutely nothing. No joy, no sadness, not even anger, just a vast emptiness where my feelings for him used to live. I can't come back to you, Remy. Is this because of Devon? But that's not real, Elian. It's obviously just an arrangement. You don't know anything about what's real, I said firmly, surprised by the conviction in my own voice. Whatever Devon and I have, it's built on more honesty than you ever gave me in 3 years. I ended the call and realized my hands were shaking, though not from sadness or regret, from revelation. Somewhere in the past few weeks, Devon had become genuinely important to me, more than just a convenient husband for revenge purposes. Difficult conversation. Devon's voice made me turn. He stood in the doorway holding a water bottle, his expression carefully neutral. Remy and Riley broke up. He wants me back. I watched Devon's face, expecting to see satisfaction. After all, this was exactly what he'd wanted. Remy experiencing regret and loss. Instead, his expression remained unreadable, giving nothing away. And what did you tell him? I refused. Good, Devon said, but something in his tone felt off, strained. That's beneficial for maintaining our arrangement. Devon, I said, taking a step toward him. Why does it feel like we're not actually discussing the arrangement anymore? He went completely still, like someone had pressed pause on him. Then I watched as he deliberately reconstructed his emotional walls brick by brick. Because you're reading too much into a simple business transaction, Elian. This is a contract, remember. His words stung more than they should have. Right. A contract. How could I possibly forget? I moved to walk past him toward my room, but he caught my wrist, his grip gentle but firm. Wait. What, Devon? I looked at him directly, letting him see the hurt I was feeling. You clearly want to maintain strict boundaries, so let's maintain them. Message received. That's not what He made a frustrated sound deep in his throat. This is more complicated than you realize, Elian. No, it's actually quite simple, I said, pulling my wrist free. Either we're just business partners following a contract, or we're becoming something else entirely. You need to decide which one you want. I went to my room and closed the door, leaning against it and wondering how I'd managed to develop real feelings for someone who'd explicitly told me from the beginning that he didn't do emotions. The next morning was painfully awkward. Devon left for his office earlier than usual, and I was left alone with my thoughts, which was possibly the worst company I could have. Was I completely insane? Developing genuine feelings for someone who'd made it abundantly clear he only wanted a business arrangement? By evening, I'd convinced myself that I needed to accept the situation for what it was and stop hoping for something more. Then Devon came home early, carrying multiple bags from expensive restaurants and shops. What's all this? I asked, genuinely confused. Your favorite Italian food from that place you mentioned once, he said, setting bags on the counter with uncharacteristic awkwardness. And this, he pulled out another bag, is something I saw and thought you might appreciate. Inside was a first edition book by my favorite author, one I'd mentioned wanting to find during a casual conversation weeks ago. I stared at him in shock. How did you even remember that? You mentioned it. Once. In passing. The fact that he'd not only remembered but actively looked for it left me speechless. Devon, let me speak first, please, he interrupted, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of nervousness I'd never seen from him. I'm terrible at this: feelings, vulnerability, emotional honesty. My entire life has been about building walls to protect myself, but you're dismantling them without even trying. I don't want to hurt you, he continued, the words coming faster now. That's why I've been maintaining distance, trying to keep this purely professional. But the truth is, Elian, I'm developing real feelings for you, actual emotions that terrify me more than any business deal gone wrong. My heart was racing so fast I felt lightheaded. Why does that terrify you? Because everyone I've ever genuinely cared about has left, he said quietly. My brother blames me for not protecting him. My ex-boyfriend used my emotions against me. Even my parents walked away when I refused to be who they wanted. I'm fundamentally destructive in relationships. Elon, and you deserve so much better than what I can offer. I moved closer to him, close enough to see the vulnerability in his eyes. What if I don't want better? What if I want you, complete with all your flaws and complications? His eyes widened with something like hope. Ilian, I'm developing feelings too, I confessed. The words tumbling out, real ones that scare me because of what happened with Remy. But maybe it's worth exploring anyway. Devon slowly reached up and cupped my face with both hands. His touch infinitely gentle. Are you absolutely certain about this? Once we cross this line, we can't go back to being just contract partners pretending in public. I'm certain, I whispered, and finally, properly, Devon kissed me. This wasn't the brief formal kiss at City Hall. This was desperate and passionate, full of weeks of accumulated tension and unspoken feelings. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. I've wanted to do that since the night we met, Devon admitted. Since I saw you standing in the rain, heartbroken but still defiant. You were beautiful in your pain, and I felt horrible for thinking that. I laughed softly. I've been thinking about you too. Your intensity, your brutal honesty, it was magnetic even when I didn't want to admit it. Devon pulled me closer. So what happens now? Now we stop pretending this is just business, I said. We try something real. Real, he repeated, testing the word. All right, let's try real. The kiss transformed everything between us overnight. The next few weeks felt like living in a completely different reality. We still attended public events and maintained appearances, but now there was genuine emotion behind every touch and glance. Devon would reach for my hand and I'd feel the sincerity in his grip. We developed private jokes that made us laugh in the middle of serious business dinners. The walls we'd both carefully maintained crumbled piece by piece as we shared parts of ourselves we'd kept hidden. I told him about my insecurities, the fear that I was fundamentally unlovable since Remy had discarded me so easily. He shared his past relationship failures, the ways he'd learned to protect himself by never letting anyone too close. I dated someone in college, Devon told me one night as we sat on his balcony watching the city lights. His name was Nathan. He was the first and last person I let myself fully love before you. What happened? I asked gently, sensing the pain behind his words. He cheated repeatedly, then made it my faults, Devon said, his jaw tightening. Said I was too cold, too focused on my career, too emotionally unavailable. He made me believe I was incapable of being loved, that something fundamental was broken inside me. There's nothing broken about you, I said firmly. Nathan was the one incapable of real love, not you. He blamed you for his own failures. Devon turned to look at me, and in his eyes I saw gratitude mixed with lingering doubt. You make me believe that maybe I deserve happiness after all. He leaned over and kissed my forehead, a gesture that felt more intimate than anything physical we'd shared. Then one evening, building security called me. Mr. Cross, there's a Remy Harper in the lobby requesting to see you. I glanced at Devon, who was working on his laptop. Send him up, I decided, curious what Remy could possibly want now. When he arrived, he looked different, defeated, like someone who'd lost something precious and finally realized it too late. Elian, please, just 5 minutes of your time. I nodded and gestured for him to sit, noticing that Devon had deliberately focused on his work but was clearly listening to every word. I made the biggest mistake of my life leaving you, Remy began, his voice raw with emotion. I regret it every single day. Riley meant nothing compared to what we had. I was stupid and selfish, and I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. You were all of those things, I agreed calmly. But Remy, I've already moved forward with my life. With him, Remy gestured toward Devon with barely concealed contempt. He's just using you for revenge against me. Elian, can't you see that? No, he's not, I said, keeping my voice level. And even if that's how it started, it doesn't matter anymore. Because I've made my own choices. I chose Devon. I chose this life. And I didn't choose you. Remy's face crumpled, genuine anguish crossing his features. Elian, please, I think it's time for you to leave, Devon said, standing up with fluid grace. His voice was dangerously quiet, the tone he used when making non-negotiable statements. Elian has politely declined your request. Show some dignity and respect that. Remy looked between us, seeming to finally understand that he'd lost this battle completely. He nodded, defeated. I hope you find happiness, Ilian. I genuinely mean that. After he left, Devon came over to where I was standing. Are you all right? Yeah, I said, realizing with some surprise that I truly was. Actually, I'm better than all right. That was the closure I needed. Devon smiled, and it reached his eyes in a way his smiles rarely did. Good. Because I've made plans for us this weekend. What kind of plans? A getaway, just the two of us. No business obligations, no social events, no drama. What do you think? I think that sounds perfect, I said, already feeling anticipation building. That Friday we drove several hours to a lake house tucked away in the mountains. Who does this place belong to? I asked as we pulled up to the beautiful property. It's mine. Well, it was my grandmother's originally. She left it to me in her will. I haven't been here since she passed away 5 years ago. His voice carried heavy emotion. She would have liked you very much, Ilian. We spent the afternoon exploring the property and the evening sitting by the lake watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Devon, I said as darkness began to fall, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? I'm falling in love with you, I confessed, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating to say out loud. Actually, I think I'm already completely in love with you. I know it's fast and maybe it seems foolish, but it's the truth. Devon turned to face me fully, and I saw vulnerability in his expression that matched what I was feeling. It's not foolish at all, because I'm in love with you too, Ilian. Completely and total. That night felt like something out of a dream. We connected on every level, physically yes, but more importantly emotionally. Devon touched me like I was something precious and irreplaceable, and I felt safe and cherished in ways I'd never experienced before. Afterward, lying wrapped in his arms in the darkness, I realized that what had started as a revenge scheme had transformed into something real and beautiful. This was my actual life now, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. What are you thinking about? Devon whispered. I was thinking that I should have thanked Remy when I had the chance, I said. Devon laughed quietly. Why would you thank him? Because his betrayal led me to you, and you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Devon tightened his arms around me. I love you, Eli. I need to say it more often because it's true. I love you more than I knew I was capable of loving anyone. I love you too, I whispered back. Always. The weekend at the lake house reset something fundamental between us. When we returned to the city, we were different, still partners in our arrangement, but now genuinely in love. Devon started sharing more about his business, asking my opinion on deals and strategy. I realized he valued my input not because of any contract obligation, but because he genuinely respected my perspective. One evening he suggested something that surprised me. Have you thought about what you want to do professionally? Beyond just accompanying me to events, I've actually been considering starting something, I admitted. A foundation focused on helping people recover from toxic relationships, mental health support, legal resources, career counseling. Help people rebuild their lives after betrayal. Devon's face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. That's an incredible idea, Elan. I'll support it completely, financially and emotionally. We could even expand the scope to include anyone escaping toxic situations, not just romantic relationships. You'd really help me build this? I asked, touched by his immediate support. Of course, he said, pulling me close. We're partners in everything now. Your dreams are my dreams. In that moment I realized I'd found something I hadn't even known I was searching for. Not just love, but true partnership built on equality, respect and genuine care. With Devon beside me I could build something meaningful from the ashes of my worst heartbreak. 3 months after our weekend at the lake house, life had transformed in ways I'd never imagined possible. Devon officially brought me into his company in a real capacity, not as a trophy husband but as an actual consultant with responsibilities. I led a project analyzing potential expansion markets, and when my presentation concluded successfully, Devon looked at me with unmistakable pride. You were outstanding up there, he said afterward. I learned from an excellent teacher, I replied, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. I'd found more than just love. I'd discovered partnership, equality and respect. Everything my relationship with Remy had lacked. Everything I'd thought was impossible to find. Elian, Devon said one evening. I want to take you somewhere special. Pack enough for a week. Where are we going? You'll have to wait and see, he said with a mysterious smile that made me more curious. We ended up in Santorini, Greece. White buildings with blue domes, stunning sunsets over the Aegean Sea, winding streets filled with charm and history. This is absolutely breathtaking, I said, standing on our hotel balcony overlooking the caldera. Not as breathtaking as you, Devon said. And though the line was cheesy, his sincerity made me laugh and blush simultaneously. This playful, romantic side of Devon was reserved only for me, and I treasured every glimpse of it. One evening at sunset, he took me to a secluded spot overlooking the water. Alien, he began, and I noticed his hands were actually trembling slightly, something I'd never seen before. When we got married, it was for all the wrong reasons. Revenge, business advantages, manipulation. But somewhere during these months together, it became the most right thing in my life. He continued, you've shown me that I'm capable of love, that I deserve happiness, that vulnerability is strength rather than weakness. He pulled a small box from his pocket and my breath caught. I know we're already married, but I want to do this properly this time. No contracts, no conditions, no ulterior motives. He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring. Just me asking the man I love, will you stay married to me? Forever this time. For real? Tears streamed down my face as I nodded. Yes. Absolutely yes. Forever yes. Devon slipped the ring onto my finger and kissed me deeply, and I tasted salt from both our tears. I promise I'll never hurt you the way Remy did, he said when we finally broke apart. I promise I'll always be honest with you even when it's difficult, and I promise I'll spend every day trying to deserve your love. You already deserve it, I said through my tears. Just by being exactly who you are. We arranged a small ceremony right there in Greece. Just us, a local officiant and the ocean as our witness. Real vows, real promises, real love with nothing held back. I, Devon Cross, take you, Elian, as my husband. Devon said, his voice breaking with emotion. Not because of any contract, but because you're my everything. My home, my heart, my entire future. I, Elian, take you, Devon, I said, gripping his hands tightly. You saved me when I was broken. You showed me what authentic love looks like, and I promise to stand beside you through everything life brings us. Forever. When we returned to New York as properly, genuinely married partners, I immediately started work on the foundation. I'm calling it the Heartbreak Recovery Foundation, I told Devon, showing him my preliminary plans: mental health support, legal assistance, career counseling for people escaping toxic relationships. Help them rebuild from the ground up. His face glowed with pride. This is perfect, Elian. I'll support it fully financially and in any other way you need. Actually, what if we expanded the mission? Include support for anyone escaping toxic situations, period, abusive relationships, difficult family dynamics, hostile work environments. That's brilliant, I said excitedly. You're brilliant. Within months, the foundation launched successfully. I personally attended sessions, shared my story anonymously at first, and watched people find hope in knowing they weren't alone in their struggles. You're genuinely making a difference in people's lives, Devon told me proudly one evening. We're making a difference, I corrected. It's always we now, Devon. We're a team. Then something happened that meant more to Devon than I'd initially understood. His brother Alex reached out properly. I'd like to meet Elian, he told Devon over the phone. If that's all right with both of you. The dinner was tense initially. Alex was clearly protective of his brother and suspicious of anyone new in Devon's life. So you're the famous Elian, he said, studying me carefully. My brother talks about you constantly. Hopefully good things, I said, trying to ease the tension with humor. Always good things, Alex admitted, his expression softening slightly. Honestly, I've never seen Devon this happy. So maybe you really are different from everyone else. By the end of dinner, the atmosphere had warmed considerably. Alex even joked, "You're officially required to bring Elian to the next family gathering. No excuses, brother." Watching Devon reconnect with Alex, because he was finally happy and healthy, meant everything to me. Thank you, Devon said that night as we got ready for bed. For what? For healing parts of me I didn't even know were broken. For making my life feel complete. I pulled him into a tight embrace. The feeling is entirely mutual. On our first anniversary, the real one, counting from our ceremony in Greece, Devon surprised me with a rooftop dinner. Fairy lights strung everywhere, soft music playing. Just the two of us under the stars. 1 year, he said, raising his glass. Since we made real promises to each other in Greece. Since we committed to this for real. Best year of my entire life, I said honestly. Mine too, he agreed. To many more years together. To our forever. To our forever, I echoed. As we danced under the stars, I reflected on how unpredictable life could be. Remy's betrayal, which had felt like the end of my world, had actually been the beginning of something beautiful. I'd found Devon complex, flawed, but utterly devoted to me. Together we'd built something neither of us had thought possible. Authentic, honest, passionate love, based on equality and mutual respect. I love you, Elian Cross, Devon whispered against my lips as we swayed together. I love you too, Devon Cross. I smiled, my heart full to bursting. Forever and always. The contract marriage that started as revenge had transformed into the most real thing in my life. And standing there in Devon's arms, I knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where I was meant to be. Not despite the pain I'd experienced, but because of it, because sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to the greatest loves. Our forever had only just begun, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take us next.